Thursday without a single statement being included contrary to the law. We even asked, here it is. This is the charge sheet she was charged with. Signed by a very senior prosecutor called Nicholas Mutuku, who was yesterday at the scene standing behind the DCI. Actually, the DPP should stand in front of the DCI, not the other way around. He signed this charge sheet that Sarah Wairimu is guilty or has murdered her husband. At the back page, it says, copies of the evidence which the prosecution intends to adduce at your trial are attached herewith. On Thursday, not a single statement, not a single post-mortem, not a single shred of evidence was attached to this charge sheet. But there's a reason for charging her on Thursday. I go back to this. Sarah was arrested on the 28th of July 2019. She was arrested as soon as she invoked her rights to remain silent and have a lawyer present. And she has been locked up in custody from that day. How many days are those? They are now 29?
17.
Sorry, I'm sorry. There's 17 days. In 17 days, I emphasize, Sarah has had no opportunity to do anything in her house except on 2 occasions. She was taken to take a bath and change her clothes under escort of the DCI. During that time, everyone and anyone, including the DCI, have had access to her home. Now, they had been harping in court, in the Kiambu court, in the High Court, that they are applying to treat the home of the Cohens as a scene of crime. You all know there is no requirement for the police to get an order to treat a scene as a scene of the crime. All they have to do is say a crime was committed here and seal it off for the purposes of the investigation. But why were they asking? Because they wanted an opportunity to finally say there is something we will find. In Kiambu, the magistrate said there is no law requiring you to treat any place as a scene of crime. You are at liberty to do it at your leisure. They still did not move. However, on Tuesday, the 10th of August, they called us and they said, we are taking your client from Muthaiga police station to her home with the scenes of crimes officers. Sorry? Actually, no, they did call us. And when we got there, we have pictures of that visit. She was allowed to take a bath. These are the investigating officers. These are their vehicles. These are the guys in white. They inspected Mr. Cohen's car. This one is important. They inspected the carpets for all sorts of things. They inspected the golf kit. You see that? And it goes on and on. A minute and thorough examination of the premises. Okay? All the shoes. There was a secret room under Tob's bed in the bedroom. It's called a panic room or something. If you are robbed or something, you can hide. The police didn't even know about it. Sarah said, on that spot there, by the way, she doesn't live in that bedroom. She lives in her own bedroom. That spot there's a room. And they went, this is the scenes of crime officer descending into that room. And it went on and on. It was thorough. Now, this is the interesting part. The kitchen. This is Sarah. She's standing every time next to them. And there's a reason. If they say this microphone is of evidential value, she had to acknowledge that it existed in her house. They then went to the garden. This is the interesting part. And this is the garden where the body was found yesterday. This is Sarah. There's a manhole here. This is them looking in the manhole. This is on Wednesday, actually, the following day. The investigation continued for 2 days. And when this is them photographing her, and she even accepted to have a DNA sample. This is her consenting to a DNA sample. They did 99% of the search. And then Judge Kinoti walked in on the Tuesday and asked Sarah to show her house. And she took him from room to room to room, including the garden. And when they got to the garden, something very interesting happened after they had seen this manhole, which is 5 meters from where the body was found. Somebody announced that we have done enough for today. We shall not continue this search today. We shall continue tomorrow. Tomorrow was this Thursday. And on Thursday, instead of going back to the scene, the DCI took Sarah to Milimani High Court and charged her with murder. I go back 2 days. On Tuesday, after the search was concluded, Inspector Otieno, Maxwell Otieno, who is one of the investigators, said, since we have not concluded our work, we require the keys of the house. Up until then, the appointees or the servants of Sarah had the keys of the house. And the watchman had the keys to the gate. And there were no policemen. And on that day, on Tuesday, they demanded the keys of the house. And they were given the keys of the house. Only God knows what they did with the keys on that night. We, however, know that Inspector Otieno, in the presence of George Ouma and Eva Kala, said to the 2 gardeners who were looking after the premises, you will stay in your house, some SQ, and you will not come out no matter what you hear. You will stay in your house. These 2 boys, pictures of whom I have, are young boys from Nyeri. Just show me the picture of the policeman who slept here. Pictures from Nyeri, and I don't think they would have dared step out of their house on Tuesday. And on that night, it's towards the end, a police sentry was now, for the first time, took over the house. It was there, you can see it. They kept the keys on Tuesday night. They told the watchmen the caretakers not to step out of the house. I saw it here. And those boys did not step out of the house. On Wednesday, they carried on with the search. I've already told you. And then they reached the point where they said, we will not finish today. And the 2 places, 1% of their search had not been concluded, was the corner where they found the body yesterday and the opposite corner. And I've told you, those places were not searched. They could have searched them. They didn't search them. They could have searched them in the presence of, I just gave it to you, a policeman sleeping on the that one policeman. They could have searched the place, they did not. Now I move fast forward. Tuesday, and that day, as my team was leaving, the premises were taken over and an armed policeman was left to guard the premises. This is the same day Maxwell Otieno tells the 2 boys, don't come out of your house no matter what. Wednesday, there's a search, it stops. 2 points are not searched. They go away. Thursday, we are in court. Friday, yesterday, at about 2 o'clock, my team had an important meeting in the Kiambu area, discussing this case with some people. And about 2:40, my colleague George Ouma decided to call those caretakers, find out how if everything was well. And they called Ernest, Jesse. No, who did you speak to? Jesse. And Jesse said only 2 words, Wako Hapa. Wako Hapa. And then his phone was snatched away. We realized something was wrong. We turned our car and started driving towards Lower Kabete. We then called Inspector Otieno. Initially, he didn't pick the phone. Eventually, he did. We made small talk with him, asked him, when are we going for the mental assessment of Sarah? He said, well, some other time. And then he seemed to consult somebody and then said, you know, I am proceeding to your client's home. Why don't you come? I said to Mr. Otieno, how do you proceed without us? How do you proceed without Sarah? He said, but we are going there. What for? You come if you want. He didn't know we were quite close. We got to the house. We found the gate closed except for a small opening. And in a classic case of gate crashing, we went into that compound. When I say gate crashing, we went, everybody became as small as me, and we went through the gate. There was a small opening, and we went down to the garden, and we found the scenes of crime officers, more than they were the first 2 times, all clearing the corner, removing this debris from that place. They knew exactly what they were looking for. We had an altercation with Mr. Kuria and Mr. Mumo of scenes of crime. Said, do you have a warrant? No. Why don't you ask us to accompany you? It's not important. Why are you doing this against the law? They said, wachana na sisi, tunafanya kazi yetu. They carried on. It was focused. They knew exactly what they were looking for. I should tell you this. If Sarah was not there, another person who was showing them the place, I've seen the name of a mystery man. That mystery man should have been the one saying, this is where it is, or some other person. There was only police officers who knew what they were looking for. And Mumo said to me, this is intelligence-based work. I said, okay, but it's still illegal. Finally, the slab was cleared. There were 3 piles of new concrete. Concrete is kokoto and cement mixed. And it was quite fresh. Fresh. Sarah has been in custody 17 days. It was fresher than 17 days. It was probably 2, 3, 4 days old. That cement. But we're just watching. We take a few of our pictures. A crowbar was brought. And if it was concrete, which was cured, it would not have been easy to move. With one strike of a crowbar, one of the biggest pile of concrete moved. One strike. It wasn't even dry enough. And then there was a manhole cover. They weren't interested in the other 2. They all came round. Pictures, pictures. Then they got a crowbar. They opened it. Everybody had a torch. I don't know why they knew they needed a torch. And they looked in the hole. We also looked in the hole. And there was a form. A form, a long form, possibly the length of a human being. It could also be the length of anything else, tied up in a blue or black wrapping. By this time, George Kinoti had arrived. And he was making a few phone calls. But the most important part of that phone call, those phone calls, was he then flashed on air that Tob Cohen had been found. No responsible police officer does that until you have had identification. It could have been anybody's body. It took over an hour from the point when he flashed it on the news that Tob Cohen's body had been found for that form to be unwrapped. It became a human being. It became a Caucasian, because we could see from the arms and legs, feet. And finally, when the face was opened, it had a shroud. It was a white person. I didn't recognize the face, but then Gabri, the sister, is called, and I believe she's the one who identified it. How come they knew it was Tob Cohen? How come they knew where to look? That is a question that we'll be very interested in. He was asked by somebody on NTV last night, Mr. Cohen, Kinoti, why did you conduct this search without the defense or without the suspect, Sarah? He says, I don't have to. Nobody tells us how to do our work. We'll meet in court. Wrong answer. That's not the right answer. The right answer is, maybe it was an emergency, maybe whatever it was they were trying to recover was going to be washed away by the sea, so they had to grab it. Nothing could have changed. They had secured the scene. They could have brought Sarah. They could have brought us. And we could have confirmed that, yes, this was a genuine search and not a frame-up or planting evidence. We watched them. We heard a police officer giving a police doctor giving a theory. He must have been tied when he was alive. He must have been this. He must have been... Well, he probably will hear that more of that in court. We decided to leave. As we went to the gate, we found the gate locked, and a police officer told us we cannot leave because some big man had said we can't leave. Mkubwa amesema. We asked why. We're free to leave. They said, no, you can't leave. Few seconds later, we knew why we had been ordered not to leave. Inspector Mwangi came to us, one of the investigating officers, and told us they require us to sign an inventory or a certificate of search, meaning a confirmation that this body had been found as it had been found. We refused to sign that certificate. And after some consultations, we were allowed to leave. So, the reason we call you today is we saw the papers today, and the same old narrative that is conducted by Nation, sections of the Nation newspaper, sections of the Standard newspaper continues. The police are prosecuting, and I would say persecuting, our client through the media. If there is evidence, it should be presented in a court of law. The last time I saw this type of abuse of process by a DCI was with one Joseph Kamau, who in a very big case when I was DPP was beginning to feed the media with snippets of information on investigations. But it turns out he was misleading the press. When the evidence finally was presented in court, it had nothing to do with what he was being told. We have, as I have told you, been shown no evidence in this charge sheet. The media have all the evidence. And when we ask our friends in the media, they weren't even supplied with the media. They were told by a reliable police officer. This type of thing should stop. This is abuse of the criminal justice system. Kinoti should take legal advice. Haji should provide legal guidance. Prosecution by the media is an abuse of the process. It can even vitiate a trial that is otherwise based on solid evidence. So I really wanted to just say that. I spoke to Sarah a few minutes ago. She is saddened by the fact that it is now confirmed that her husband has passed on. But she asks, when will you, as the media, finally just print, either wait for the trial or print stuff that you can support? She pleads with you to give her a chance. She pleads with you to give her a chance. For example, there is, let me show you that green card. This. One of the investigators was very excited in court on Thursday and said, oh, we now have telephonic evidence and we know she paid somebody called Peter some money. It must have been in connection with this matter. I quickly took instructions. Peter, the mystery man, is a professional MC. And he was the MC at the wedding of Sarah's daughter on the 22nd of December 2018. Sarah has a niece who is getting married on 18th of October. She paid by M-Pesa Peter 10,000 shillings as a deposit so that she could book him for that event. Here is the original receipt. Do the police want it? Do they care? Have they asked for it? Huh? It has always been in the house. What is this game they are playing? Finally, I have pictures of the cement. I've told you that cement doesn't look like it is more than 3, 4, 5 days old. I had the misfortune of, or the fortune of seeing the body that was retrieved yesterday. The body was not decomposed at all. I have talked to pathologists and they have said to me, after 50 days, the body would not look like that. The body was not bloated and swollen. The body was not stiff. And lastly, the body was wrapped up and tied up with military precision, professionally. You have to be trained to tie up a body in such a manner that it does not let any air in, and that does not, if it was somebody trying to dispose of a body, then it would be allowed to decompose. That's part of the game. But this was tied up in such a way that, gentlemen and ladies of the media, there was no odor from the body. There was no smell. I saw my CID friends trying to put on face masks. I said, what are you putting them on for? But there was a big video camera. The police were videoing themselves. Smelling. This is a travesty of justice. Finally, for those who have been carrying the narrative, from John Kamau of The Nation to a few other journalists in Holland, that this man, and quoting Patrick Moiruri and DCI, that the man is dead long before this body was discovered. Can they be the ones to record the first statements? What did they know? What did they know? It is irresponsible to suggest somebody is dead when you know they are not. Unless, of course, they knew. And if they knew, perhaps they can tell us how they knew and why they didn't arrest Sarah 50 days ago. I leave it there for now. What I'm doing, I can tell you, is also crossing certain lines because we know when there's a case pending in court, you do not comment about it. But the police under Kenoti do not give two hoots about that rule, so we shall respond in kind. And for you, the media, if you need a reason, call it public interest. Let's have this debate out here well before we engage in court. I'm prepared for that. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Walter.
From what you said from the beginning to now, is it your contention that the body was planted there?
It is our express contention. And I have given you a sequence. The sequence is clear. He disappears on the 20th of July. You sections of the media have reported that he was seen with two ladies between 2 and 4 on the 20th. The phone records have never been shown to us to show when he stopped using his, or who he called the last day. But I have seen from his WhatsApp profile, he last opened his WhatsApp on the 20th. So it's a question of time, whether it was early on 20th or late on 20th. But he still had time to, I'll show it to you, for those who don't know his number. Okay, I'll invite you to look at his number and see that. His name is Cohen. His number, Tob Cohen's number is 0721 601 480. And I can show you his, just get it for me, George.
The number
George, just open it. It is George. What is this? Okay, sorry. We're looking at this little picture here, but I don't see it. I want that the one that shows. Yeah. No, where? Go back there. Go back where you see the picture of him. He opened his WhatsApp, whatever you call it, in digital media, and he last opened it on 20th. Now, these two women were supposed to be with him on 20th. Standard wrote that story. Nation have written that story. To this day, we haven't seen. George, what did the picture? We haven't seen statements recorded. In fact, the police tell us those women never existed. Now, your question was, then you have this huge period of time. She is interrogated 6 times, 3 times in the house, 3 times at DCI. Mwangi and Otieno are forever strolling in the garden when they are interrogating her in the house. She's only arrested one day, and I'm glad you've asked me all that. She's only arrested one day. You can pass this round. When, she's only arrested the day when Mwangi asks her for her title deed to the house, and she said, what does that have to do with the disappearance or the murder? So, good people, is this about the dispute in the matrimonial property? Is this something else? Are people going for this property?